Hi, I'm Bernetta Ashley, better known as Edgy B Girl, and I'm super excited to be here with my mentee Martina Nichols, better known as For All Curl Kinds, and we are here for all about that base. And the most exciting part about today is that Martina has never worked with Schwarzkopf professionals before, so not only is she going to learn everything about creating a beautiful cherry cola, but she's also going to learn about the ins and outs of using Schwarzkopf professionals and our Blondme lighteners. So get ready. Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Okay, let's go.
Blondme is not just for all over blonding. There are so many services out there that Blondme is good for.
I can mix my lightener and it's always going to look the same, but is it gonna lift the same? No, because I did not properly mix it.
And I fold them up under the other foils.
What a tip.
Friends, have I not taught you this yet?
But the reason that I'm using the Precision Lightener right now is because it has extra chelating agents. Because we're what? All about that base.
We're going to be creating a cherry cola. And with that, that has a little hint of reds in it. It has a hint of, some browns and some burgundies. But we really want this color to pop. So because we want the color to pop, we need to create the most beautiful base for that. With creating that base, the first thing that we always have to do is section. So sectioning is always going to give us the control that we need for the hair. But tell me, how do you typically section?
For a balayage, if I'm going to section the hair, I would typically do quadrants, start in the back, work my way up the back, and then up the sides.
Perfect. So I'm going to do something similar to that. The only thing I'm going to do slightly different is I like to work in 6 sections versus the 4 sections, and I like to work on a zigzag. Reason why I like to use a zigzag, because it's automatically going to give a natural lived-in look and feel to the hair. So I'm going to start off with a zigzag right at the crown, and then we have our 2 zigzags in the back. I have a lower zigzag in the back of the crown, and then we have our 2 zigzag sections in the back. This allows us, so when this color, because it's eventually going to fade out, she's still going to have a beautiful canvas. So keep in mind that we're all about that base. So with all about that base, we still want it to look very natural, very lived in, and very wearable. Literally just take the tail of the comb and I'm just working it up and down on the side of the head here. And then I have you get your hands in here. So I'm going to have you hold this on that side for me. I'm going to bring this back just towards the crown of the head. And then we can turn her. And then I'm going to have you actually switch sides with me. Perfect. And then I'm going to repeat the same on the opposite side. So going from the center of the eyebrow up towards the hairline and just zigzag. And again, it does not have to be the most perfect zigzag out here. At the crown here, we're just going to lightly zigzag but scoop around to gather the hair. Another key thing that you want to think about when working with textured hair is being very gentle. So notice that even though I am sectioning this out, I'm still not like pulling and tugging on the hair. Textured hair, I'm sure you know this, we talked about this before, textured hair can be very fragile. So because of that, we wanna make sure that we're not doing anything to disrupt the hair or create any type of friction or any type of fuss to it. So now that we have our top section, we now are going to make our side sections. And with making our sides, so I'm going to have you just stay right here with me so you can see. Again, we're going to do that zigzag. So coming from right here at the crown, just zigzag. And I'm just using my hands to lightly separate the hair. And sectioning is always going to be a great way to have control. Our lovely model, she has a lot of hair, which I absolutely love. So think about if we were trying to balayage this, we don't understand where this is gonna live if it's all out. We're just pulling random pieces and it doesn't have a cohesiveness to it. By sectioning, you still can have that cohesiveness. So we know the term now, lived in color, balayage, is all a very free-form hand painting technique. However, you still have to understand your how and your why of what you're doing. So that's why I like to always section the hair so I can have a better understanding of my how and my why. And I like to twist it up, and sometimes you leave it straight down and just clip the way. I personally like to bantu knot it and then clip it so then I can fully see exactly where I'm gonna be working. So we're just lightly
Do you like to section this part of the crown based on, because it's like around the round of the head, or what makes you separate this here versus higher or lower?
So I typically like to use the round of the head. Also, I like to think about visually, how is this gonna lay and look? If I go below, sometimes it can be too heavy. If I go too high up, it's too small of a section. So always think about kind of like the curvature, the roundness of the head, where that color is going to live and lay. And then now that we have our back crown, we are just going to zigzag all the way down to the center nape. So as you can see, we now have our 6 sections. We have our top crown, our 2 sides, our crown in the back, and then we have our 2 lower nape sections. So now we can actually get started in mixing into our color. One of the cool things that I absolutely love with working with our Blondme is that it has integrated bonding technology into it. So it's gonna protect the hair the whole entire time while we're actually lifting. So you don't have to use any type of pre-bonder into the hair, which is phenomenal, especially with working with textured hair, because we really wanna make sure that we preserve the curl integrity. My absolute favorite thing that I love about it is that it gives me a nice controlled lift. So whether I'm doing something low and slow, I can still get those nice, beautiful levels higher up, like your level 9s with still using a 7 volume. So that's why I said that I like to use that sometimes in the salon, because you can get something very controlled. So we're gonna be working with our Blondme Clay Lightener, and we're gonna be working with 20 volume. Because we're working with 20 volume, I'm gonna be working with our saran wraps, and this is just gonna help to isolate the hair as we're working through each section. I personally like to do a 1-to-2 ratio. So fully mixed together, nice and even, and now we're ready to get started. So here we are in our first section. We're getting ready to get started. I did a diagonal zigzag. Again, your zigzags do not have to be super defined. It's just a light motion of your comb working up and down right at the base. Once I drop down this section, it's probably about 1/4 of an inch. I'm now gonna zigzag again in this section underneath. Drop out that section. This is gonna be my veil that supports the color. So keep in mind, we're doing a lived-in balayage as our base. With doing that, I still wanna have some of the natural hair that lives underneath, so this section can actually really pop and stand out. So many times we see where someone is balayaging, they're kind of like doing everything, and then it looks almost all over, almost like an ombre, and it takes away from having pieces actually stand and pop out. And I'm gonna start midway through, working down the shaft, creating a V shape. And I always like to lightly load my brush and then reapply if need be. I always want to feather back towards the base so I can have a much natural lived-in look and feel. No hard lines of demarcation.
Would you ever back comb?
That's such a great question. And yes, sometimes I back comb, and it really just all depends on how much of a diffusion that I want to have. So I will actually show a section where we can back comb. So we're gonna take this section, I'm gonna lift it up, still using tension here. And I'm going to reapply to make sure that we get a nice pop of that color. And I'm not going all the way up, I'm going just from the mids to the ends of the hair. The cool thing that I love about with our Blondme is we have 3 different types of lighteners that you can use. So whether you're doing it on the scalp application, or if you're doing something where you're airing it out, or you're trying to get that maximum lift, you have something for each different scenario in the salon. So I'm gonna get my board out, place this here, and hit those ends. So if there's an area that maybe looks a little hollow, you really want to make sure that you come back over it so that you can see that nice clean saturation. So it should be fully saturated here. Place directly underneath. Yep, and I'm just gonna have you drop your hand down. And then we're just gonna fold our corners in. Perfect. So now that we finished one quadrant, we have how many? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 sections. I now know that I need to do the exact same on the opposite side so I can have a balance within my color. So that's another thing that you want to think about whenever you're doing a balayage in a free form. There still needs to be some form of consistency within your application. I don't want to have where one side is extremely heavy and then the other side is a little light. I want to have a good balance. So however many sections I put on one side, I want to do the same on the opposite. Make sense? Okay, so let's go ahead and get started on this side here. So now that we have completed our 2 back sections, we're now getting ready to go into our back crown, and we have already mixed a new batch of our lightener. So always keep in mind that as you're working through, you want to have a fresh batch for at least 1 to 2 new sections so that way you can get the full consistency and the lift that you're looking for with that lightener. So now that we're in this top section here, we're still going to be working in those zigzags, but we're working more in a horizontal versus just working in those diagonals because this is now going to lay and sit on the top. Same thought process. We still are going to drop down and then we're going to leave a little bit of a veil underneath so that the color can actually stand out and pop. Would you feel like you would be able to work through the sections in the amount of time that we're working through it? Or would you feel like you would have to rinse out sooner?
Great question. In the salon, I would be using, my favorite lightener is a cream lightener actually. I typically use that with 20 volume, 1-to-1. So I would definitely have to rinse.
Got it.
I don't feel like I can get all the way through the full head unless I'm going pretty light. Yeah. And I do really appreciate the 7 volume developer.
Yes.
That's a game changer for me. I have been wanting a 7 volume developer for a while, so it's really great to see that and be able to move at the pace that you want to move, especially working on texture. Everybody doesn't have the same head of hair, everybody doesn't have the same density, everybody doesn't have the same starting level, so just being able to work comfortably is what I really enjoy. So the 7 volume is a game changer for me
Absolutely love that. And that's one of the things that I love with working with Blondme is that I'm able to work and complete a look with control. So I don't have to worry about like compromising my technique because I have to hurry up and rinse out a section because it's lifting too light for me. I have the control that I need so then I can still get the same amount of lift. It's nice and even and I don't have to compromise the integrity of the curl pattern. So the first thing I think we have to think about is what was our mixing ratio? Did we properly mix the lightener right? A lot of times we don't use a scale. And I think that can be we're kind of like a mix and pour, look and see. Yeah. Did I get it right? Oh, it looks right, it mixed well, so therefore it's right. And so many times that can cause other situations or issues. I think the one thing that we have to always remind ourselves of is that this is a chemical. And because it is a chemical, we have to make sure that we're following manufacturer's guidelines and we have to make sure that we are properly measuring things. So it kind of goes back to our whole scenario when I was talking about with baking. If I bake a cake and my first time I bake it, I follow the directions word for word. And then the next time I'm gonna do, well, just add a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Is it gonna taste the same?
No.
No, it's not. And then the next time I say, you know what, let me add a little bit more of this and maybe less of that. It looks the same. But is it gonna taste the same?
No.
No. And that's the same thing when it comes to us when we mix our lightener. I can mix my lightener and it's always going to look the same, but is it gonna lift the same? No, because I did not properly mix it. My ratios were not right. The other thing that we have to think about, and it goes right back into the type of hair that we're working with. The texture, the density, what are we doing? I wouldn't put curly hair inside of a foil with Blondme 9 and 20 volume. that is a lot of things that are happening in the hair.
Yes.
And it's automatically going to create and cause a reaction. Her hair, 9 times out of 10, is not going to give me the lift that I'm looking for.
Yes.
And let's add into the new component that we have is the technology of our lightener now. So the technology in our lightener now is completely different than what it was years ago. So with us now having the integrated bonding technology into it and the anti-metals, all of those things are going to help to preserve the hair and to preserve that we get the proper lift that we're looking for.
All of the analogies are really great for me because visualizing, I don't even like to bake, so I think now you're gonna have me baking because you're telling me that I'm just doing it a little bit wrong. These are the rules and I know that I can break the rules, or it's actually more so that I've been told what manufacturer directions are, but I still don't get the lift that I want from that. So I typically use 1-to-1. And so I think the combination of that and the 20 volume,
Yeah.
my cake wasn't good.
Your cake wasn't
my
rising
cake
how it
wasn't
needed
good.
to.
My
I
cake was
love
not
that.
good.
So now that we have fully completed the back, you can see that our sections, they're nice and isolated. And another thing that I like to use with the wrap, I don't have to worry about actually moving the hair. I can literally see right through it. So I can see how that lift is coming through nice and beautiful. We're getting the perfect lift that we're going for, so that's great. So we're gonna continue to let these still sit and process. We're not gonna move up to the front half of the head. Quick question. Typically when you're in the salon, do you go to your sides, then your crown, or your crown and then your sides?
I typically start on my sides and then my crown.
I used to do the exact same thing, but I now start with the crown and then move to the sides. Reason behind that is typically in this crown, we want to get the maximum amount of lift in our time, and it never fails that we're always waiting for this last section. So because of that, I'm going to start here first. These are all going to be going back anyway, so I don't have to worry about that, and then I'm going to move into my sides. We still have enough lightener here that can probably get us halfway through this section. So at the halfway mark is when we're going to mix up our last batch, and then we'll move to the sides. Key thing to think about when you're mixing up your batches is that I'm still using the same amount of lightener that I would use for her whole entire head. I'm just subdividing it into different sections versus mixing all of it at once. If I was in the salon by myself, how I typically am, I typically already pour out my lightener in my bowls, have them sitting along the side, and then I just easily add the developer, so it saves me much time. So here we are in our very last section right here in the crown of the head, and we really just want to make sure that we get nice and good with our painting, with our balayage here. I'm getting a little bit closer towards that front of that hairline so it can have a very natural lived-in look, still side brushing, but I also wanted to give you that nice pop that's going to frame around the face. You're perfect right there. So as you can see here, we are just lightly brushing. Notice that I'm painting the whole entire section here because this is going to give me a nice pop of color versus doing our V shape. Just like with all our previous sections, we always want to make sure that we are hitting that underneath. So important.
And so by coloring or balayaging this whole section here in the front versus the V, that's going to give you more of like the classic money piece look. I feel like
Absolutely.
it's hard to translate that onto texture.
Absolutely. Sometimes that can be a real challenge when it comes to curly hair, not really seeing a strong money piece. So by balayaging this whole entire surface here, I'm able to get that really pop of that color that lives right here in the front. Still gonna use my board. Saturate, saturate, saturate. And notice that you can almost tell when your hair is fully saturated. Look how controlled the hair becomes when it's fully saturated versus when it's not. Perfect. So now we're moving into our side sections, and we're going to be working on a diagonal back zigzag. That is automatically going to allow the hair to move forward, and that pop of color will sit just there. Just like how we did in our previous sections, you always want to have a slight veil underneath. And what we're going to do slightly different in this side is we are going to for sure back comb, because we want to make sure that we preserve the hairline. If we get sometimes a little too close, it can lift a little too quick for us, and the hair around the hairline is always super fragile. So because of that, I want to back comb slightly just to preserve it in this area. So here we are, my first zigzag. So here we are, we have completed all of our 6 sections, and let's just recap really quick. We started off with creating 6 zigzag subsections, the crown, 2 sides, lower back crown, and then 2 back sections. From there, we're gonna start in our lower nape section doing a diagonal zigzag, leaving a slight veil underneath, and then we always wanna make sure that we are holding the hair with tension, and then we're gonna begin to apply our lightener with doing a balayaging technique, always slightly feather towards the base to ensure that we get a nice soft line of demarcation. Continue that all the way through the back, and then when we move into our crown, we're gonna be working more in a horizontal. Same exact technique that we're gonna be doing. From there, instead of us going into our sides, we're gonna go into the crown, complete that all the way through. Key thing that you wanna do slightly different is those last 2 subsections right in the front of the face. We want to make sure that we're slightly feathering all the way through so that we can get a nice bold placement of color there. From there, we're going to move into our sides, and then once we have completed, we now can go ahead and move into getting ready to rinse her out. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay. Phase 2 coming up soon. Tell me, with toning and glossing, what do you look for in your toning and glosser?
I'm looking for longevity, something that's going to be true to tone with what I'm using. I'm looking for something that's going to have coverage. It's not going to be too sheer unless I'm looking for something sheer, so that feeds into the longevity aspect as well.
Perfect. And with using what you're currently using, do you have a cream developer? Do you have a liquid developer? Do you have a gel developer? Tell me what type of developer you're using.
We have a liquid developer. We have separate liquid developers, so one works well for a bottle application, and one works well for a bowl and brush application.
Okay. Well, let me tell you about my best friend, Vibrance. Absolutely love using Allure Vibrance in the salon. It is, I like to think of it as the top coat to nail polish. So it's going to give you shine, it's going to give you great coverage with the color, it is going to give you that sheerness if that's what you're going for. You have an arrangement of colors that you're going to have there. It is going to seal the cuticle. It is that perfect last step to your color service. The cool thing that I love about it is that it can be both for a bowl or brush application, bottle or bowl application. We have 3 different types of developers with it. So we have a gel, and then we have 2 different types of lotions. The gel is going to be all about the consistency that you're looking for. So let's say if you have somebody with maybe finer hair, or maybe if those ends are extremely porous and you don't want it to grab too much, I would go into my gel. But then we have the 2 lotions, and this is where things get real fun. So we have a 6 volume and a 13 volume in the lotion. The 6 volume is just going to give you that nice coverage that you're looking for, but then that 13 volume, that's going to give you a little bit extra of that shift. That is what we're going to be using today. So think about how we did our application with our lightener. We left some of her natural hair out, but we still want to have a little bit of that shift in that tone there. That 13 volume is going to give us just that. So think about all the different opportunities that you have with Vibrance and how you can create an enormous amount of different colors with just using 3 different types of developers.
Nice.
I'm gonna get her a Vibrance girl in no time, just watch.
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So how I like to formulate is I like to start off with what I'm working with first and then mix my next one. So we're gonna start off with our base color. Our base color is going to be our 6-99 and our 7-88 with the 13 volume activator lotion. This is going to give us a nice creamy red violet that we're looking for. So that cherry cola color that we're going for, this is gonna give us that depth right there at the base. So we're gonna be mixing 2 parts of the 699 to 1 part of the 7-88. So So again, once I get my developer in here, I just like to do a light stir to start to slowly get it to mix together. And then once I see that I'm getting a good mixture, I just come in and get it nice and evenly mixed. So we're just about getting ready to get started with our toning, but before we do that, I like to put our skin barrier on there, which is our skin protectant. I never like my client to walk out of the salon looking like they just left the salon. We know what that looks like when it's all stained around the skin. This is gonna help to protect that, to ensure that she doesn't have that like halo area right around there. And I typically put it all the way around the hairline, the ear, and then all into the lower neck. I hope you noticed that I split our base color into 2 bowls because I'm actually gonna have you work with me with this. When you are toning in the salon, how long do you let your toner sit on the hair?
Anywhere between, it can process anywhere from 3 to 20 minutes,
Okay.
but I'm like a 15 to 20 minute sweet spot for the longevity, unless I know I want to get it on and off right away.
Toners have a range of time, so they can sit on the hair up to 20 minutes. Does not necessarily mean they have to sit that full 20 minutes. Even if you're going for something sheer or you're going for something a little bit more in depth in there, just always be sure to keep in mind your timing and checking it. So I'm gonna show you how I like to start off with my section, and then I'm gonna have you do the same thing on the opposite side, and then we'll move into the front together. Sound like a plan?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna start off with, I like to outline my section first. And I'm going about 1.5 to 2 inches into the hair. You wanna make sure that you add enough. I'm gonna outline the whole entire section here. Nice clean application.
I can say just from looking at it, from what's in the bowl, that the consistency is a lot more firm. And I find that when I have guests that have more hair and more density, sometimes I lean more towards being in the bowl because it gets so messy.
Yes, so that's something that I absolutely love. Notice how we're applying and it's staying right where we're applying it. It's not running and dripping and moving all over the place. So now I'm just subdividing the hair. I like to apply on the surface and the underneath. I want to ensure that I have nice, great coverage. So I'm going to continue in this exact same manner. Diagonal slices, 1.5 to 2 inches down. Always apply underneath. And here's the thing that I like. Once I get into a rhythm, it just makes it that much easier. So notice it's almost like kind of robotic.
Yeah.
I go from the center to the outer, and then I flip my brush up. If I need to reload, I go from the outer back towards the center. Repeating that same step makes things so much easier and cleaner and controlled. Notice how controlled we are within this section versus taking the product, dripping it all over, massaging it in, and hoping it gets to all the different areas. So now we're getting ready to move into our front sections here. Only thing I'm gonna do slightly different, instead of me outlining the whole entire section, I'm gonna leave this front hairline for the last. Reason behind that is I'm gonna take vertical slices so the hair can move away from the face. I'd like to ensure that the hair is not laying on the face, just in case she moves or anything. I don't want color to get on her skin. So just like how we were previously doing, I'm gonna go from the inner towards my outer corner. I'm going to take a slice. And then I'm gonna repeat. And sometimes you have to reload your brush up, which is perfectly fine. So we talked about saturation being something super important. if I look at this one, I'm gonna have you hold your head back just a little bit more for me. There we go. I can see right here, this is not enough saturation. Reason why I can see that is I notice that the hair is not kind of like laying down flat with the product. That is gonna be a key indicator that there's not enough product in that area. So when we talk about color being hollow, that is something that you wanna be very mindful of. If there's enough product on the hair will automatically lay down. So that is something to always be just kind of a key little nugget to think about. So here we are, kind of like at our last section. And one of the things that I like to do around the hairline is instead of me brushing horizontally, I like to brush vertically. So this can softly get the hair, and it also helps to ensure that we don't leave any type of hard lines with our color. And it helps to get sometimes that finer hair that lives around there. There's nothing worse than you have done your whole entire toner and then you rinse it out and then you look at your client's hairline and you're like, I missed a whole little hair. And of course, that's like the first thing you see.
Yeah.
So by side brushing, this just helps me get all of those little finer hairs and everything is nice and away from her skin. So now we're getting ready to formulate for our mids and ends. That is something that I absolutely love to do. Keep in mind, color, when it sits out in the bowl, is automatically oxidizing. So I say start off with your first formula first and then go into your second one, especially if you're not gonna be applying them together at the same time. So we are gonna be using the 0-99 and the 0-88. So here's something that maybe be a little uncommon for most, but this is something that I absolutely love to do. These are actually the additives or the boosters. You can actually use them alone. You don't have to use them with a color. So if you're looking for that real vibrancy on the mids and the ends of the hair, this is a great way to do it. So we're gonna mix equal parts. And this is like when the fun happens. Thank you so much. Like when I say you're keeping me super organized, you are definitely keeping me all the way organized here. And we want to get a little bit more, so we're going to do 2 more bottles of that, 1 of each. So equal parts of the 0-88 and the 0-99. So how did it feel for the application for
Really
you?
good. It felt very consistent, cohesive. Like the color it sits up. I don't know what other way to explain that, but I don't feel like it's going to drip all over the floor, be all over my guest's face, be all over the bib. Like it's still very clean. And yeah, it almost felt like a good blend between a liquid and a permanent color.
Love
Yeah.
that. And one of the key things that you mentioned was about that it doesn't move. And I love that it doesn't move. And when you look at her hair, you can see the shine of it automatically sitting there. So that's how I know, like when we say vibrancy, I always say the name speaks for itself because it truly does, because we're gonna get that nice vibrant color there. So as you are working with your toner, a couple things that you wanna think about is actually allowing the product to do its job. So many times we apply toner, we look at it and we're like, oh my gosh, it's not working, or we tense up and we are ready to rinse it too quick. If I take this off too soon, I'm not gonna get a true read of my color. So I have to allow the product to fully sit onto the hair and do its job. Don't panic and don't look at what the bowl looks like versus what it's actually gonna look like on the hair. Just let it do its job. So now that we have done our full application of our toner, let's just do a quick recap. So we started off with our base application, which is going to be our 7-88 and our 6-99 with our 13 volume activator lotion. We applied that from the nape coming all the way up to the front of the hairline, about 1 inch to 1.5 inches to 2 inches from the scalp to the mid right there. And then on the ends, we did a 0-88 and 0-99, equal parts. and we really just want to make sure that we massage it in. The key thing that you always want to make sure of whenever you are applying your toner from the mids to the ends, that you're working it from one side to the opposite to really make sure that it gets nice and evenly saturated. We talked about saturation is super key when it comes into textured hair, so we want to make sure that we get that full saturation there. Your toner timing is going to be of the essence, so always keep in mind that there's a range of time, 5 to 20 minutes. It does not necessarily have to sit the full 20 minutes unless that's what you are going for your color, but you also want to make sure that you let your toner actually sit on the hair and do its job. We discovered that earlier, that just because how it looks in the bowl is not necessarily how it's going to actually oxidize and look on the hair, so don't panic.
Yes.
Do not panic. So now we're gonna rinse her, we're gonna then condition her, and then we can go into our styling. Are you excited about the styling?
I'm so ready to start.
I'm
Very
so
ready.
right there with you. And we have some new fun stuff that we're gonna be playing with today.
Awesome.
Perfect. So now we're getting ready to go into my absolute favorite part, which is going to be the styling. And with styling, there's so many different steps that we want to make sure that we follow, but the key thing is following them in the steps by step. So tell me, when you apply curly products, do you typically cocktail them or do you layer them into the hair?
I typically layer them into the hair with a ton of water. Like
Yes.
water is your first product.
Yes,
water. Yeah.
yes. Absolutely love that you say that you layer the products in there, because I do as well. And I feel like you get the most benefits out of a product when you actually layer it into the hair versus cocktailing into the hair. So the first thing that we want to do is start off with sections. So you cannot apply the product just all over. You really want to make sure that you get a nice definition. You have to apply it section by section. I'm going to start off with water. I want to make sure that it's very hydrated. And I know sometimes water is kind of like scary when it comes to curly hair, but water is going to be your best friend at this point. From here, we get this nice and wet. I'm then going to go into my leave-in conditioner. So for us today, we're going to be using the Blondme All Soft leave-in conditioner. Love this. It's going to help to protect the color. It's going to add some moisture back into the hair, and it's going to give us a good shine. Spray this in, and when you're working your product into the hair, always work from the scalp through the mids to the ends to ensure you get nice, even saturation. And then tell me, what is one thing that you always hear your clients talk about when it comes to curly hair? They want to do what?
Most of the complaint I feel like I hear is frizz.
Yeah.
So they don't know how they have so much frizz, why they have so much frizz, where the frizz is coming from.
Where the frizz is coming from.
Yeah.
So we have a cool new product that I absolutely love, and this is going to be called the Glow, and this is an anti-frizz serum. So this is going to help to preserve any type of hair, keep it nice and frizz-free. Going to also add in some shine and some moisture into the hair. Because we are applying this section by section, a little bit goes a long way. So I just say one little pump here, very small amount, rub it into your fingers, and then work it into the hair. Notice when I'm working any type of product into the hair, I'm always working down and then I scrunch up. This is going to always help to reinforce that curl pattern there. From there, now I'm going to determine what I want to do to really give definition to the curls. So I'm looking for a strong hold, or I'm looking for something a little bit on the moderate side. For us today, I'm going to go with a little bit of a medium hold. So I'm going to be using our Osis, our Tipsy Twirl. Absolutely love this product. It's a nice jelly. It's going to give us a nice medium hold, but still give us the definition to the curl pattern. It's super jelly-like. So just get it on your hands. Now tell me, when you apply product, because I'm going to speak to it, do you typically wear gloves, or do you just have your lovely hands out?
I don't typically wear gloves unless there's something going on with like my hand. Sometimes like washing stuff out and not having gloves, and then trying to style, or if it's stuck to my fingers, but no, typically no gloves.
So I like to use gloves because it just helps, one, to not get the colors all on my hands, and I find that the glove is a little bit more smoother, so as I'm working into the hair, it just smooths it out a little bit easier for me. Notice how we have nice clusters of her curls. Do not touch the hair at this point. We have to set the hair. So setting the hair is gonna be super important to that end result. If I keep working through this section and working through it, I'm gonna be creating frizz, and I don't wanna create any type of frizz there. So once I have it nice and set, I'm then gonna go ahead and drop down to my next section and repeat the same steps. Now that we have her hair all the way set, our very last step that I always like to do is just take a little bit more of our water, resaturate the ends, because we know the ends typically dry out the quickest. So I'm just gonna resaturate those and do one final scrunch. Just to ensure that we get that nice definition there. As you can see, her curls are really nice and defined, and now we can go into our diffusing. Couple of things that I like to do whenever I am diffusing is I always like to dry the outer hair first before I immediately go into moving the diffuser into the hair. So I always like to start off with a medium heat, a low airflow to ensure that I get the hair nice and warmed up first, so then it can start to gradually start to set. Once the hair has started to set for me, I'm then gonna still keep myself on a medium heat but a higher airflow, so then that way the heat can actually work from the outside to the inside of the hair. So let's get started.
Okay.
We're just about finished with drying our hair. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take a little bit more of our glow, apply it into my hands, and this is gonna help to break the cast from the gel. And I'm really just going to scrunch it into the hair. You're gonna automatically start to feel the cast of the hair slightly breaking, but she's still gonna have that definition there. That's what we absolutely love. And then I'm gonna come back in with my diffuser one more time, and I'm just gonna finish diffusing it, and then we'll be all set. So she's fully dry and diffused, but we wanna add a little bit more definition to some of her curls in here. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking a small curling iron, and I am just wrapping around the outer of the barrel, and then just releasing to give us a little bit more curl definition in here. It can be very organically selected, your strands of hair, so you don't have to do every single one. I like to do kind of every other, kind of alternate it so you can get more of a variation of the look in here. And then once these have kind of cooled, I just like to slightly open them up a little bit. This helps to give us much more volume. And this is great for the client that wants to have day 3 hair on day 1, meaning that she wants to have much more volume, much more lived in looking to her color and to her styling. So here we are at our final results, and always keep in mind it's all about that base. So getting the perfect, nice golden hue at the base to begin with and toning her down to this lovely cherry cola, you're gonna get the perfect cherry cola for your clients. So Martina, we had a full day. Tell me, how do you feel and how was your experience?
My experience was amazing, from the color choice to the viscosity of the product, the shine, the styling products. Working with you was amazing. So everything was top notch.
So is it safe to say that you now are a Schwarzkopf fan?
I think it might be safe to say that you maybe have converted me.
Yay, we love that. For all the hairstylists that are watching, go ahead and drop the scissor emoji in the comments because I want to see who's tuning in. So there you have it. Model loves the hair. Minty loved the experience. I always love Schwarzkopf, so definitely want to stick tuned and join the family. Thanks for watching.